Hey, České Budějovice, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite albums, and today, yes, I'm gonna talk about the one of my favorite folk albums of all times. It is Fleet Foxes' Helplessness Blues. So, Fleet Foxes is a band from Seattle, Washington, which is, I consider, if I ever go to the USA, I would probably consider Seattle as my home base, at least for a while. And Seattle is actually a really relaxing and calm and peaceful place. And you know, an album like this, a band like Fleet Foxes, is the kind of band you would expect to come out from Seattle. And this is Helplessness Blues, their sophomore album. But I also want to take some time out talking about their previous efforts before Helplessness Blues. We have the Sunshine EP, which isn't great or anything, but I think the track Mykonos, or Mykonos, is one of my favorite Fleet Foxes song, period, because it's so sad and kind of somber, but also kind of hopeful and beautiful and poetic at the same time. It's also extremely catchy, and the ending of the song is beautiful. It's blissful. And then we have the self-titled debut album, which is great. There are tons of highlights on the album. We have White Winter Hymnal, which is just great. We have Quiet Houses, Tiger Mountain Peasant Song, and Blue Ridge Mountains. Blue Ridge Mountains. Hell yeah. And you know, they are a folk band, but on their self-titled debut is very much folk rock. There is a huge sort of a rock fusion with the acoustic folk side of the album, which I really love. And also, even though looking at the album cover, it's very medieval, you know, very Middle Ages, but, you know, occasionally Robin Pecknold talks about how his brother misses his connecting flight on the track Blue Ridge Mountains. But on Helplessness Blues, this is more medieval and more Middle Ages than I have expected before going into the album, and I honestly love it. This album is one of the most beautiful, romantic, and lively albums I've heard in the decade, and probably ever. And what makes this album really special is that it makes me really appreciate and admire the details of everything in my life, you know, from a flower petal, to a tree, to a cute little animal, to the sky. It makes me appreciate everything for its beauty. And again, I really like how medieval tinged the album sounds, and also the instrumentations here. They all feel kind of organic and kind of raw in a way. It feels like they come from the medieval ages, such as the strings, the woodwind, and even for the very deranged saxophone solo at the end of The Shrine, an argument. I think they're saxophones, I don't really know. But also I think the drums are fantastic. They're actually played by Josh Tillman, of all people, who later became Father John Misty. And also the vocals are actually fantastic. Robin Pecknold is the vocalist, and he gave some of the most emotional and beautiful performances on this album in the decade. What I also love about this album is that this album pays a lot of attention to details. While listening to the album, you really need to listen to the album hard. You really need to pay a lot of attention, because this album pays a lot of attention to its own music. I mean, there are all sorts of sonic details that are sort of hidden, and it requires attention for you to catch on those details. And my favorite thing about listening to the album is that listening to this album feels like I'm reading this very thick, old, medieval manuscript sitting on a creaky wooden rocky chair in a small, confined, but beautiful house in the middle of the countryside during the medieval times, when there are farmers sort of picking potatoes and fishermen sort of fishing, and every night we would go to the, you know, the nearby town hall, the town center, to celebrate life. Anyway, the album starts off with Montezuma, and it is my first Fleet Foxes song, the first Fleet Foxes song that I've ever listened to, and oh my gosh. Listening to this song for the first time really gave me a feeling that I haven't felt for like 10 years, because this song essentially puts me in a state where life is way more simpler. It's like it puts me back in time, but in a way I actually recall my emotions very vividly, in that life back then is very simple and the world back then is very beautiful and humble and honest, and it's just a really great feeling. We get these chilly, sort of cool morning guitars with sort of this, you know, very small tinge of sadness, which is really beautiful. We get these vocal harmonies, which are just very gentle, very tender, and these shaky Christmassy bells, which are just a perfect touch for the song. And also, this song is about time passing, it's about getting old, and it's a perfect album opener for the album. I also really love the lyrics and the vocal performances here. So now I am older than my mother and my father. I just love this song. The next track is Bedouin Dress, where it starts to get kind of blissful and joyous, actually. It really feels like a traditional sort of Middle Ages folk tune. And medieval, I'm not talking about, you know, King's Landing or Winterfell or anything. I'm talking about Lord of the Rings kind of medieval, you know, kind of Middle Earth kind of medieval, like you're in some small little obscured town where all the people are happy and they're all dancing in like the town hall or something, really happily just enjoying life. I really like the skippy guitars and the skippy drums. The strings on this track is very jolly, very beautiful, very pure and innocent as well. And the vocal harmonies, they really have this traditional sort of old school vibe to them. And there are dynamics in this song as well. There are multiple moments in the song where it all just quiets down, all the instrumentals strip back, and you only hear Robin's vocals, and these parts are always very beautiful. Then we have the next track, Sim Sala Bim, where we get these sad and lonesome guitars in the beginning, which slowly builds to the verses, which are both kind of sad and dejected, but also has a tinge of, you know, bright hope, you know, the kind of hope you would see in between dark clouds kind of hope. Even though I think these two moods clashing against one another at the same time is not a great combination. It kind of goes together, sounding a little forced to my ears. But I'm not saying that the song is bad at all, actually. I still think it's a very beautiful and poetic piece of music. I think another problem with the song is that the vocals aren't that dynamic. But again, the second half of the track, it just quiets down, it tones down, and we get this very beautiful blossom of guitars just sort of fading in from the background, and it's just very beautiful. Also, there are multiple occasions on this track where you can actually hear these hidden, plucky guitars on the right channel, which is a really smart attention to detail. Up next, we have Battery Kinzie, which has these crushing drum beats in 3/4 time signature. We also get some really optimistic guitars and some really ceremonial pianos. And even though the song doesn't change much, it doesn't have much in terms of dynamics. You know, Fleet Foxes, they managed to keep the track short. You know, it doesn't drag on for too long or anything. It's, I think, 2.5 minutes long, you know, short, concise, but also very beautiful. And then we have the track The Plains/Bitter Dancer, which is, I think, an incredibly underrated track, because this is one of the few moments on the album where you can actually feel like you're in this other dimension or in the same world, but from like a long time ago. The track starts off with these surreal and eerie sort of tiptoey guitars creeping up from behind, and we also get these very ethereal vocal harmonies raining down from the skies like gusts of wind and smoke, because the opening for the track here, the beginning of the track, really sounds like I'm in this smoky, foggy, medieval forest that's, that came from like a fairy tale or something, and it's incredibly beautiful. It almost has this mystic vibe to it, which is really the case for the second part of the song. This song is pretty multifaceted, where we get these sad but mystic vocal harmonies which are just beautiful. And we also get these hustly bass guitars which are not heavy or aggressive. In fact, they're very tender, but they are also very compelling and engaging in a way that it sounds like a man from this medieval town is trying to sort of set out for an adventure to look for his long-lost twin brother or something. Maybe it's because he thinks that his long-lost twin brother is in another country or something. And honestly, it's very beautiful. And we also have lyrics here where Robin basically sings, "Tell me again, my only son." And it's like Robin is trying to, reason with his son on the track. And it's just almost in a way biblical, but not in a religious way, but more in a scripture kind of way, in a manuscript kind of way. And of course, the ending of the track is not sad or mystic at all. It's actually very blissful, very beautiful, and it sounds like Christmas came early. It's honestly very stunning. Then we have the title track on the album, Helplessness Blues, and wow. I have never heard a song, an acoustic ballad, this sincere, this honest, and this passionate, and this full of heart. It's so full of heart. It's very beautiful. It's very poetic. And this song is about realizing that you're only just a small part of a really grander scheme. It's very humbling and very modest, but also this song is about trying to serve a greater purpose in this world, and it actually reflects a lot about the purpose and the meanings of life, which is something that I think everyone at my age of 16, 17 are looking for right now, the meaning of life, because, hey, I'm a millennial and people around my age are all having midlife crises, or maybe it's just me, I don't know. But yeah, this song is so beautiful. It just puts me in pure awe. And again, the vocals, they are, some of the best I've heard all decade. But I don't know what will I be. I'll get back to you someday. Soon you will see. It's a pretty tricky song to sing along to, actually. I just realized that. Robin Pecknold, he is a legitimately skilled singer. Like, he's like one of the greatest singers in folk music, in my opinion. But yeah, even though the first half of the song doesn't have drums at all, just the very compelling and beautiful and exciting guitars is enough to compel this track to be something very blissful and hopeful and pure. And the ending is actually very beautiful, where Robin talks about if I had an orchid, and it's just a very, very beautiful song, in my opinion. One of my favorites of the decade, period. And we have the next track, the Cascades, which I think is sort of this instrumental interlude, which isn't bad at all, in my opinion. We get these very beautiful multi-layered guitars that are sometimes mystic, sometimes upright, sometimes gorgeous, but it's many layers of guitars with different moods and emotions sort of melting against one another. And we also get an instrumental swell at the end, which is pretty gorgeous. Even though this song isn't all that eventful, and if this song is removed from the track list, it, wouldn't ruin the album or anything, it's still pretty great. The next track, Lorelai, is another song that is in 3/4 time signature with these gorgeous guitars and drums. I also really like the simplistic guitars, which just goes up and down. in a very blissful way. Almost in a way, this track sounds like the kind of song you would listen to at a very beautiful sunset, but it's not the kind of song where it puts you in a nostalgic mood or in a farewell mood where you're saying goodbye to something in a very sweet and warm way, but it's just a very blissful conclusion that doesn't feel immature. In fact, it feels very mature and very developed. The mature kind of bliss, if you know what I'm talking about. The vocals here are amazing, and the chorus here, it's kind of transcendent, actually, kind of surreal, actually, where Robin sings, "I was old news to you then." I mean, great lyricism just continues on the next track, "Someone You'd Admire," where one of the line is, "After all is said and after all is done, God only knows which of them I'll become." And the song itself is great as well, in my opinion. It's this very sincere acoustic follow-up to the very blissful, marchy song that is Lorelai. It's more stripped back. The guitars are way more toned down. We get more vocals, which are more bare, which are in the spotlight. And the melodies of the track, it's kind of somber, kind of warm at the same time, like a warm goodbye. And it's very far-reaching, in my opinion. It just reaches beyond the horizon, which is very beautiful. However, the next track, The Shrine / An Argument, is just way greater, like leagues greater. This is essentially an 8-minute medieval-tinged folk epic that is multifaceted. It's extremely beautiful, and it's so full of emotions. It's so heartfelt. It's stunning. At first, we get these guitars which are, very foggy and smoky, and it has agony and pain in it. And we also get these lyrics which are just super beautiful, in my opinion. "I went down among the dust and pollen to the old stone fountain in the morning after dawn. Underneath were all these pennies fallen from the hands of children. They were there and then were gone." And when Robin sings the line, "Sunlight shines over me no matter what I do," which I will not attempt to sing, wow, just this explosion of struggle and almost sadness, but in a way, Robin sounds like he's trying to understand something. He's struggling, he's trying so hard, but he just can't. This explosion of emotions is just powerful. It gave me the chills the first time I heard this line. And afterwards, we get these very purposeful guitars, which are just beautiful. It's loud, it's powerful, and it sounds like the main character of the song is leaving hometown, is on a conquest to look for the answer, which he thinks is hidden within the nature or within some mystical lands beyond, knowledge of, humanity or whatever. And it's actually very, very beautiful. And then we have the second half of the track, An Argument, which is, of course, about an argument, a disagreement, and it's depicted so beautifully. We have lyrics talking about how green apples belong to me, so obviously it's a dispute of green apples, but I'm sure the metaphor goes way deeper than that. And we also get these very dejected guitars and drums at the end of the song, which feels like both the people or all the people who's involved in the arguing are all tired, are all drained from their life force. And at the end, it's just incredibly heartbreaking and heart-crushing because we get these horns, which I think are saxophones, actually. They're just scratching and squelching and screaming in pain, like they're sobbing and they're crying, but in a way it's crying them dry. They're crying so much, it's crying them dry, and they're just struggling to stay alive. It's a very disturbing moment in the album, which I think is incredibly creative and something I totally didn't expect from a folk album. Anyway, after the incredibly horrifying ending of An Argument, we have Blue Spotted Tail, which is sort of this calm after the storm. You know, it really picks up the emotions again. You know how after you cry, you sort of comfort yourself with something small and insignificant, but yet you hold onto that small piece of happiness because you know that it's the only way out of the sadness. This is what the song sounds like, and it's incredibly beautiful. This song has these round cyclic guitars which are really sweet, and the vocals are incredibly romantic and intimate. It really sounds like Robin Pecknold is singing this closely to the microphone when recording the song. And on the song, Robin basically asks, why this, why that? Why does the earth move around the sun? Why is life made for the end? And it's sort of this self-reflective moment, which I really love. But what really surprises me is that this album actually has a happy ending. It has a happy ending. We have the track Grown Ocean, which is a happy ending, which is amazing, actually. It's amazing. Listening to this song makes me want to do something. I don't care what it is I'm doing, but if I want to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do something, I'm going to continue living my life because that is the spirit that I need. In my dream, I'm as slow as the mountain. On this track, Robin sort of describes a dream. But that dream, I don't think, is just sort of the kind of dream you would have at night on your bed, but it's the kind of dream that you have in the future, you know, your hopes, your goals. And Robin looks forward to it, or the main character of the song looks forward to that dream very optimistically, and not in a blind optimism way, but in a way where he finally found the answer to life, to the meaning of life, and he finally knew what he has to do in order to fulfill that meaning of life. And so he decides to abandon all the burdens and just go straight ahead, looking for the answer, achieving the ultimate state of life and living. And it's powerful, especially when Robin sings, in that dream I could hardly contain it. The vocals are so expressive. And also, I'm not going to attempt to sing it because I'm probably going to fail miserably. I could hardly contain it. I can't do it. But yeah, the verses and the choruses on the track, they're just perfect. They're golden perfect. And the guitars are so exciting, but not in a way where it's, you know, very blissful and energetic and very sugar-coated, but in a way it feels final, in a way you actually find the energy and the spirit you need to move on with life. And that's incredibly beautiful. Also, the guitars towards the end, they're very smooth, very twangy, and very beautiful. And the song sort of ends off with this very gorgeous, quiet, hushed, whispered ending. So yeah, this album, man, this album is a great album. Originally, I was going to give this album like a strong 9, but after repeated listens, I think it grew on me even more, because this album is a folk album that's unlike any other folk album I've ever heard. It's so beautiful, it's so full of life, and it makes you appreciate everything that's going on in the world, and it makes you really appreciate the beauty in every small thing. And yeah, it just puts you in a state of mind where everything's more simpler, and where you are really trying to look for the meaning of life, and you have an optimistic outlook on it. And it's just, man, I'm feeling a 10 out of 10 for the album. My favorite song here is the title track, and my least favorite is the Cascades. So, have you listened to Helplessness Blues by Fleet Foxes? From 1 to 10, how much did you rate it? Like if you like it, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.